Today, I'm going to be talking about wedding photography tips. I'm actually going to be doing 10 for you, and I'm going to go over them, and they're going to help you with a variety of different things. So let's get into it. Welcome to I'll Be There For You, the podcast that helps couples with their wedding photography planning with me, William of William Adwin Photography. I have photographed several hundred weddings throughout the years, and I wanted to bring all of that experience to you. So take a listen, make sure to follow, and thank you for stopping by. Okay, thank you so much once again for joining me, and I hope the few episodes I've been posting have been helpful in your wedding photography planning and your wedding planning in general. And these 10 wedding photography tips I'm going to talk about today, again, they have to do with photography, but they also just help in general with the entire experience. So let's just get right into it. So number one, does your venue have a backup plan if it's going to rain or if it's going to snow or whatever the case might be? Venues come in all shapes and sizes, of course, and some venues, when you're doing your walkthrough, you want to keep this in mind. Also depends on the time of the year and what part of the country or world you're in. But if you're in a particularly rainy or particularly cold or maybe extremely hot area, keep in mind what aesthetics are outside and what aesthetics are inside for the venue. So some venues might have really beautiful exterior, really great property, landscaping, grounds, and all of these things, beautiful walkways. Inside, they might not have as many things to offer. It might be mostly a ballroom inside or banquet room, whatever the case might be. But these are just things to keep in mind. So when you're doing your walkthrough, if it's bad weather, if you can't be outside, what is inside that can work in terms of where you can have your pictures taken with your significant other, with family and wedding party. So definitely an important thing to keep in mind. So that is number one. Number two, is your venue exclusive, or do they have possibly multiple weddings happening on the same day, and or other events, corporate events, whatever the case might be? If you're envisioning a day just for you, just for your family and friends, and you don't want another wedding to be there or close by, it wouldn't be in the exact same room. However, some venues could have multiple banquet rooms, multiple ballrooms, whatever the case might be, all in one location in close proximity to each other. Is that something that you envision, something that you don't want? Ultimately, the decision is up to you. But keep that in mind when you're doing a walkthrough. Again, so is this exclusive? Is this just going to be your wedding and there's not going to be anyone else there other than family and friends that you've invited? Or is it possible that this venue might be having more than one event, whether it's another wedding, maybe it's a corporate event, whatever the case might be? Also, some venues are also functioning hotels, of course, or country club, or whatever the case might be. So these are other circumstances where there might not be the privacy that you want or the exclusivity that you want. Or you might be completely fine with there being, another wedding, and that can be exciting for you, and there's multiple weddings happening in the same general location, and it's just a big celebration. And again, ultimately, it's only a decision you can make, but something that's important to think about when you're choosing a venue and when you're doing a walkthrough. All right, the next tip is, who does your photographer recommend for hair and makeup, for florist, whatever the case might be? Now, in general, but not always, but in general, a planner is hired. If there's a planner, a venue comes shortly after. And oftentimes, in general, a photographer is chosen shortly after. But of course, that's not always the case. I will say, if you're going to hire a planner before you choose your venue, because your planner can help you choose the ideal venue. And the venue even if you just have 20 people, but especially if you have 100, 200, hundreds of people, there's a lot of things to take into consideration. You're hosting a very large celebration. You definitely want a planner to help you choose and understand the pros and cons of different venues and find your ideal venue. But back to what I was saying, in general, the photographer is chosen, relatively speaking, towards the beginning, and oftentimes before, but not always, but oftentimes before maybe hair and makeup, florist, entertainment, whether that's the band, DJ, prior to video. However, some photographers also offer video, so that can kind of be, a combined conversation. Wardrobe, whatever the case might be, talk to your photographer because, you obviously trust them, you've hired them, and photographers that have experience certainly have worked with a lot of vendors and can make great recommendations for you. All right, so moving on to number 3. I highly recommend having an engagement session. An engagement session is something that I'd say like 95% of my couples have. I don't make it mandatory. I'm never going to tell a couple they have to have an engagement session. However, I strongly encourage it. And the reason I do that is because it allows me to build a rapport with the couple. It allows them to get to know me. It allows me to see how they are in front of the camera. It allows them to see how I am when I'm using the camera, when I'm working with them. And also, I always like to say there's so much more to taking a picture than taking the picture. And what that really means is how much is involved outside of taking pictures. And one of the tremendous things is the experience and the comfort level of whoever I'm photographing. So while I certainly have showed up on a wedding day and went into the bridal suite and said, hello, my name is William and we're going to be taking some pictures today. And that's really kind of my first interaction with them in terms of taking pictures. I of course, have talked to them previous to that with a consultation, with any planning involved, but that will be the first time that I'm actually taking pictures with them. So it really depends, and there's a variety of kind of responses depending on the person. Most people aren't 100% comfortable as soon as a photographer picks up a camera and starts photographing them. Some people might be, pretty confident right away, but in general, most people take some time to warm up and to get used to it, and if nothing else, just to know what the experience is like to have their picture taken. And even if the photographer says, just ignore me, I'm a fly on the wall, I want to capture the moments, you still have them in your peripheral, or you're still thinking about it to some degree if you haven't worked with them before. So all of these reasons is why I highly recommend having an engagement session. Also, an added bonus of an engagement session is you can go to a location or locations that logistically would be impossible for you to go to on your wedding day, or take advantage of a certain time of the year. Now, I have photographed couples. I photographed a couple once in the winter, and we went to these frozen waterfalls, which kind of sounds dangerous, but it wasn't at all. We weren't literally on the waterfalls, but they were in the background, and we were on right off the trail, and we just did some hiking through the woods, and these beautiful waterfalls that were frozen over and, surrounded by snow and the, what's that? Rhododendron, beautiful rhododendron trees, which of course stay green throughout the year. So while all the other trees and stuff are just kind of barren, there was still some greenery there as well because of the rhododendron. And so that obviously wasn't something we could do on the wedding day. The couple got married in the fall, and we of course were not shooting in the winter, and we weren't near any waterfalls. But that's one of many options as to how you can take advantage of an engagement session, different location, different time of the year, whatever the case might be. Also, if you have pets, if you have dogs, you can certainly have some pictures taken with them. Of course, most dogs don't make it to the wedding day because, it's a lot to manage them. However, sometimes they do. I've already gone to couples' houses or their apartment and have photographed them with their cat, whatever the case might be. There's just so much flexibility you have with an engagement session, and really just, make it your own. All right, so that was the fourth wedding photography tip. And when I say wedding photography, I also include engagement session in there. And actually, the next few tips are all going to be kind of engagement session related or photography related in general. So let's see, number 5. The next thing I would talk about is I always ask my couples this, and I always ask in a just very open-minded and respectful way. If your photographer doesn't ask, by all means, it's something that you can talk to them about. And what I'm getting to is, do you have a preferred side to be photographed on? Now, this only applies to any kind of portrait. Even if the portrait could be shot more in a candid style, more in a photojournalistic style, or it could be like a traditional portrait. But this is not something that you can really do on your wedding day when there's a genuine, candid moment or real photojournalism happening. You can't always have your preferred side necessarily photographed. However, sometimes you can. It really depends on the situation. If you have a preferred side, you, of course, can stand on one side or the other of the altar or wherever the ceremony space might be. But many, many moments throughout the day and your dance as you're rotating or the speeches and toasts and so many candid moments throughout the day, it's, of course, not possible to always get your preferred side. So again, this is really mostly pertaining to portraits. But you can still tell your photographer, you know what, I do have a preferred side. I prefer my left side. And this could be for a variety of different reasons. It could be your hairstyle. I'll be honest, I have a beard, and I like how my beard grows on the right side more than the left side. It just kind of comes in fuller. So whether it's your beard or your hairstyle or simply, you just prefer one side, certainly something fine for you to talk to your photographer about. And then that opens the conversation into anything else that couples want to share with me. And some couples won't share anything else with me. Other couples will. And I never, I'm never going to try to force anything out of them. But I do want to make an effort to be able to listen and understand anything that maybe they feel self-conscious about, because some people share that with me, and it can be a variety of different things. And being a knowledgeable photographer with portraits, there are ways that we can work with someone's preferred side or take care of any insecurity or anything they feel uncomfortable about. Some examples of things that people have shared with me is maybe there's some thinning hair in the back of someone's head, and they just want me to be mindful of that. Maybe someone feels self-conscious about their arms or chin or anything else. But these are some things that couples have shared with me, or their midsection. And through me giving direction, I can certainly flatter in the way that people prefer. Now, this topic of conversation, of course, can be a sensitive topic, because some people might have the argument of, you should just be comfortable in your own skin and whoever you are. And I'm not disagreeing with that either, but it's my job as a photographer to listen to couples' wants and needs and give them an opportunity to talk to me about something if they want. But I will never make an assumption about anything. So, for example, I don't have any hair on the top of my head. While I have a beard, I don't have hair on the top of my head, and I haven't in a while, and I just started shaving it. But if I hired a photographer to take portraits of me, and I never said, you know what, I'm self-conscious about, being bald, which I actually enjoy not having hair at this point. It's just very simple and clean. But if I went in and had portraits taken by a photographer and I got all the pictures back and they cropped off the top of my head, or even worse, like photoshopped in hair, and it's not something I asked for, that's something that would just be offensive and rude. So I never make any assumptions about what anyone wants or doesn't want. But what I do, again, is give them the opportunity to speak to me about it if they want. And if ultimately they don't share anything with me and they're just like, hey, let's just have pictures taken, and then that's completely fine. And I'm not going to make any assumptions about anything, and I'm not going to crop out someone's head if they shave their head and they're bald, and we'll just get some pictures together. So if you want to, and if your photographer doesn't ask, you certainly are able to share these kinds of things with them if you so choose. Okay, moving on to number 6, your wardrobe for your engagement session. In general, my couples usually will bring 2 wardrobes, not always, and usually they'll bring a wardrobe that's a little more formal, and then they'll bring another wardrobe that's a little more casual. And the nice thing about that is it gives couples variety. The wardrobe you choose can also work with the environment that you're in. If you feel like going super, super formal, frozen waterfalls and hiking around in the woods might not be the best location. Although if you wanted something purposely kind of contrasted from the environment, that could work. But in general, if you're kind of in like a formal, elegant location, that kind of formal wardrobe works. If you're more in a casual location, a more casual wardrobe would work. And I never tell couples that they have to get formal. And at the same time, I never tell couples that they have to be casual. It's just usually what most couples choose, because I think most people have a formal side and a more casual side. However, once in a while, my couples would be like, yeah, we do have 2 wardrobes and they're actually both formal. That's totally fine. Or I'll have a couple and they only have 2 wardrobes, or they only have 1 and they're both casual, or the 1 wardrobe they have is casual and that's just their style. The most important thing, back to the experience, is I want them to feel comfortable. So if I told people they have to dress casually, they might not feel comfortable that way. And if I, on the opposite end said, you have to dress up and you have to have a suit or whatever the case might be, and that's just not how someone dresses, that's not going to make them comfortable either. So I really just try to have a conversation about it. Again, listen. It's a big part of my job is asking questions and listening. But in general, I would encourage some kind of wardrobe change, and then you can have a variety. So moving on from there to number 7. 7. What to bring on your engagement session. This sounds really simple, but when people are thinking of having their pictures taken, and it's probably the first time they're having their pictures taken in any kind of involved way other than, hey, selfie, these are professional pictures. So a lot of people will be really focused on that, and they might forget to just bring a bag for anything. So I always recommend to bring a bag. Bring a bag for your spare wardrobe. Bring a bag for accessories, which I'm going to talk about in just a moment. You can have water, bug spray, sunscreen, snacks, whatever the case might be. If you get hangry sometimes, make sure to have some snacks. Especially if it's in the summer, make sure to stay hydrated. And even like with my couples, I usually shoot for like 2 hours for the engagement session. But even though that doesn't sound too long, even if I was only shooting for an hour, if it's August or July in at least Northeast United States, it can get pretty hot and well into the 90s, especially this year, and humidity and all of that. So just bring a bag and kind of bring all of your essentials. But wardrobe, accessories, water, bug spray, sunscreen, snacks, those are kind of like the ideal things to bring with you. So moving on to number 8, which is accessories. And by the way, in these show notes, I will have a link to my page, which will have all of these tips on them. So accessories can really change a wardrobe pretty quickly. And whether you bring 1 wardrobe or 2, if you bring a hat or different hats, a scarf, and it could be a very thin scarf. Not all scarves are worn in the winter. Sunglasses, jewelry, a blazer, a jacket, any number of things. accessories can really change a wardrobe very quickly, and you can really have fun with it. And especially if you consider yourself to have more style, you're probably more likely to have accessories. You could have, a handbag, purse, different kinds of shoes. Really, you name it. Just make it your own and make it your style and let your style be shown. All right, number 9. It's nice to, of course, have an engagement session and you're walking in the park or in a place that's meaningful to you. But I recommend to couples to have some kind of event on their engagement session. And what does that mean? It doesn't have to be any kind of formal event, but it's just something to do together. So, earlier I was talking about how you can take advantage of the engagement session and you can bring, for example, your dog. If you're walking your dog, playing with your dog, that's an event. It's something more than just walking down a path in a park, and then coming over to this other part of the park and this is where we walk down another path. And, it's not as personalized. So I really want every engagement session and wedding to be personalized to the couple. I want it to show off their character and personality. So bring your dogs, whatever the case might be, by all means. Some people turn their engagement session into more of a family session. They might have a kid and they want to bring their kid along, and that's certainly makes for some beautiful moments. Some couples have brought a picnic basket. They might bring some champagne or wine. Some couples have shared ice cream together or share a slice of pizza together, or I mentioned, I've visited a cat in someone's home a few times, actually. Cats usually don't go outside, although sometimes they do. But whatever it is, have some kind of event. Make it your own. It'll make it more personalized. And also, when there's an event and something to take your focus away from the camera, that's important. So if your dogs are there, if you're visiting your cat, if you're sharing ice cream with each other, and I did an engagement session where this couple, Yael and Justin, they shared some ice cream together, and it was so fun. It was so playful, and it was just a great way to end their engagement session. So have some kind of event. And last and not least, and very important, depending on where you're photographing your engagement session, and this also pertains to your wedding day, sometimes you need to make sure that you, if you need a permit, that you, of course, obtain a permit. So, for example, there are some parks, some whatever the case might be, some gardens, arboretums, historic locations. This tends to be, in general, more in the more populated cities and areas. More in the suburbs, people are usually, in general, a little more casual and not concerned about permits. However, sometimes like state parks and stuff that are more rural do require permits. So whatever the case might be, wherever you're thinking of going, talk to your photographer. Make sure that a permit, if a permit's required, that the permit is, of course, obtained. You do not want to go to wherever you're going to and invest all that time and getting your wardrobe ready and having, your bag of snacks and everything in order, and your dogs are there, and then a park ranger or whoever the case might be says, where's your permit? And unfortunately, you can't photograph here if you don't have one. So that is my 10 wedding photography tips. And I have many more. I have a Word document of at least 100 tips at this point. And I'm going to start breaking them up into groups of 10 and making episodes out of them. And I also will post one at a time on my Reels on Instagram as well. And so I'm just kind of trying to put it in multiple places, multiple formats. So a quick recap. Number one, does your venue have a backup plan if it rains? Think about the interior aesthetics, not just the exterior aesthetics of your venue in case it's raining, snowing, extremely hot, or extremely cold. Number 2, is your venue exclusive or will they be having multiple events on the same day? Is it more of a public location like a hotel or is it more really just exclusive for you and your family? And what do you prefer? There's really not a right or wrong way, but just something to keep in mind. Number 3, who does your photographer recommend for hair and makeup, florist, or any other vendor that might be helpful on your wedding day? Photographers, they have experience, they know these vendors, and they can make some great recommendations. Number 4, have an engagement session. Number 5, talk to your photographer if you have a preferred side or anything at all that you want them to be aware of when they're photographing you, if you feel self-conscious about anything, etc. Number 6, think about your wardrobe or wardrobes for your engagement session. Number 7, what you want to bring with your engagement session. Number 8, accessorize. That can really add variation to your wardrobes. Number 9, try to have some events during your engagement session. Make it personalized to you, and it'll really be fun for the two of you. I promise you that. And you'll even forget that the camera's on you sometimes, which is great. And last but not least, make sure that your photographer obtains a permit for the engagement session, for the wedding, with any locations that you're going where a permit is needed. So that's my 10 wedding photography tips for this episode, and we'll catch you next time for some more. And leave a comment, leave a review, make sure to follow, and I would love to hear your feedback, and thank you again so much for listening.